There you are, Nathan. And
Anyway,
let me screen capture you and take your soul.
I'm gonna pop the chat out so I can see it.
Oh, you don't want to do that.
I'd love to meet some of the people who are kind of frequently in the chat. But...
Oh, they're just, most of them are atheists and heinous people. You know, just, do you really want to meet people like that?
Maybe. I'm especially interested in DB Cisco. He seems like a really interesting guy.
Yes, DB Cisco and I, we go way back together. We went to separate schools together.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
It's a joke, separate schools together.
Oh, man.
You got to pay attention if you're going to be on my channel here.
Well, it's midnight here, so I'm a bit...
Oh, perfect. You're ripe for the picking.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, are you a Christian?
I'd say so, but very different to probably the last time we spoke, for sure.
When's the last time we spoke again? How long ago?
Over a month ago, like a month and a half, maybe.
Okay,
something like that.
So, but you still call yourself a Christian?
Yeah, but what that means is very different to what it meant then.
Can you tell me what it means for you now?
So I think it's maybe best to contrast it against where it was then. So then I'd say it was like I wasn't a Calvinist, but it was more like an evangelical, very certain belief. Whereas now I'd say that I don't really have epistemic justification for any of my beliefs. I just kind of have these vague notions of the Christian God and of the narrative of Jesus, and I don't know what that means exactly.
So you have these vague notions of God.
Yeah, or maybe a belief without any kind of warrant or justification. And yeah, I think that's maybe where I'm at. But it'd be I don't even know that there's that much of a difference between, say, like deism or agnosticism and where I am at the minute. But I think I probably have some beliefs where I definitely disagree with a lot of kind of atheist people who want to only say that there's no possibility at all.
Okay, well let's do a speed round and do.
Okay, sure.
So pretend I'm a mechanic and you're a car, and we're doing a diagnostic check right now.
Okay.
Because I don't want you calling yourself a Christian if you're not, because that disrespects other Christians watching, right?
I don't know. I mean, they might think that, but there's quite a kind of diverse array of people within that.
Right. Okay. Do you believe in a supernatural realm, that there's something other than material that exists?
I don't know. So yeah, I'd say yes, but I don't know that the distinction is I think it's kind of arbitrary.
Okay, so when I'm running the diagnostic test on you, you can just go lean yes or lean no, or lean true,
yes.
lean false.
Lean true. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you believe there's a God?
Lean true.
Okay. Do you believe this God is of the Bible, the God of the Bible?
Undecided.
Oh, you're right in the middle?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Do you believe that there was a man named Jesus who died for your sins?
As in he existed as a historical figure, but then the second part of that sentence, that he died for my sins, unsure.
Would you say you're right in the middle?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And what about the resurrection part? Do you believe that Jesus died and rose in bodily form from the dead?
I don't know that resurrections happen, I'd say. So
So is that a lean no or middle?
No. I'd go with middle because it seems like a pretty weird thing, but the rational part of me is well, that isn't something that happens for sure.
So if that's something that doesn't happen, why would you be in the middle?
I think it's something to do with the narrative. So maybe it's that it conveys a deeper truth, or whatever it actually means is something different than it physically having happened.
Okay, but my question was, do you believe
sorry.
But my question was, do you believe that a man named Jesus died and rose in bodily form from the dead?
Yeah, I'm not certain at all.
But would you lean yes that you do believe that happened, or lean no?
I'd probably lean no that didn't happen.
Okay, you're not a Christian.
Really?
Really? Sorry. You're still a theist, I think. Yeah,
okay.
You're definitely still a theist, but you're not a Christian.
Right.
Does that bother you? That I just came out and said it?
I don't know. I think I don't know. I think what bothers me would be like the group psychology and peer thing. So I think, the way that would make a lot of other people respond to hear that.
We don't. When you get to my age, you really don't care too much
Right.
about how people respond. How old are you? You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
23, like a month ago or whatever. So.
Okay. Well, maybe before I asked any of these questions, I should have asked, will any of these answers affect you in a negative way?
I couldn't say like I'm someone who like has depression and stuff, but I don't know how linked it. I think Christianity was like part of maybe me dealing with some of that stuff in a way that helped, but I don't think because actually that would have been quite funny if I came on here and I went, Doug, I've lost my faith, and like just like I don't know.
Well, you're not off yet.
But yeah, I think I don't know that it'll affect me negatively unless a very particular view of the Christian God exists, where I've got eternal conscious torment for not believing the right proposition. So,
okay, I'm going to do something that maybe atheists in here are not going to like. I'm going to try to lead you back to Christ.
Okay,
and
that's interesting.
And if there's anything that doesn't resonate with you, and if you want to push back against me, go ahead, push back.
Right. Okay. Sure.
So I'm serious. I'm going to try to bring you back to Christ.
Okay, that's really interesting. Okay.
So, you said when I asked you, do you believe that Jesus Christ rose from bodily form? After a little bit of back and forth, you said, I lean no. You don't believe that Jesus Christ rose from bodily form. But are you aware of all the eyewitness accounts that 500 people saw the risen Jesus, that Jesus, according to the book of Acts, walked and talked with Jesus for 40, a lot of people walked and talked with Jesus for 40 days. Are you saying you're dismissing that?
Yeah, I don't know that's good enough evidence for what the claim is.
Why wouldn't eyewitness testimony be good enough evidence?
Yeah, I'd say because it's essentially not repeatable, or it could have been any other way. There's eyewitness testimony for a lot of weird things having happened in the past, and
okay, so you're saying if I accept Jesus rose from the dead in bodily form based on that type of evidence, then you have to accept a lot of other things.
Yeah, a lot of other kind of random historical claims that would you'd be kind of. It just seems to be this one where you'd kind of say, I'm going to take. I'm going to make special considerations for this one, but I'm going to reject that weird like African tribal thing or.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you say then that the prophecies, there's like 300 or so messianic prophecies from the Old Testament that Jesus fulfilled and that came true. Doesn't that impact you, that Christianity is true now?
I think they're interesting because I wouldn't want to go into like a rationalization of just explaining them away, but coming at them with an open mind. I think that you can look at, say, a lot of the New Testament and see that some of the kind of weirder bits were people who were very familiar with the Old Testament possibly kind of writing in things to make sense of
it's like I'm looking in the mirror. That's exactly what I would say. But sorry, I'm trying to lead you back to Christ. So
okay,
I got to be serious here. Okay, so you're saying that a lot of the prophecies could have just been penned in after the fact.
Or a lot of like the strong theological points, certainly. Now there's obviously like some things like maybe like Old Testament prophecy about Tyre or whatever, and I don't know like how you'd parse out whether that sort of thing happened by coincidence, or I don't know enough about when those books were actually written for it to be much more than just kind of speculation on that kind of prophecy. But yeah, I'd say most of the messianic stuff could.
Okay, so you've discounted eyewitness testimony, you discounted prophecies. Obviously, you've never read Isaiah 53, because if you did, you would be a Christian today.
Yeah.
What about the thousands upon, well, millions of personal testimonies of people experiencing Jesus today, seeing miracles in the name of Jesus. If just one of those is true, wouldn't you be more likely to believe that Christianity is true?
But I think I'd say, you know, I'm someone who's had, you know, like weird sort of experiences, and I think that's why I'm kind of cautious to become a complete reductionist or to say that there's no such thing as the divine or whatever. But I do think, you know, that's equally as explainable for a member of the Hare Krishna movement or for a Muslim or Mormon. Like I can't get past the fact that I mean, I've only got my experience, but for sure, like, as I take a step back and look at it, it's like they've got the same amount of warrant I have. I could try and, you know, like play a philosophy game and do reformed epistemology or whatever and say, well, I've got this properly basic belief now, but that still doesn't lead me like to why it would be the Christian God or why it wouldn't be, and why any of these other people aren't justified. So, yeah.
Okay, but you're open to miracles. You're open that miracles could happen today.
Yeah, for sure. I'm open to them, but I just haven't had like you know, like enough evidence of one having happened. You know, like I've got weird things that have happened in my own life, but I can't say for sure like that those things were this or just coincidence or what. So
you're making this very tough for me to try to get you back to being a Christian, but let me try something else. And this is
not the Kalam cosmological argument.
No, that doesn't have to do with Christianity per se. That has to do with yeah. Now this is powerful, and I'm almost, you know, I'm like, what's the guy from Marvel who's the useless Avenger who just shoots bows and arrows? Or shoots the arrows?
Yeah.
What's his name? The useless guy. What it's called. But I feel like that guy. Like I'm pulling out my quivers, and you're just. But I think this is powerful.
Okay.
You believe a man named Jesus actually existed in history, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you believe he had followers?
Yes.
Okay, that's a great start. And do you believe that these followers had their life radically changed because of this man named Jesus?
Yeah, I do think so, yeah.
Okay. Now, why in the world, this is the $1 million question, why in the world would these followers who've had their lives radically changed be willing to die for what they saw, what they experienced? If this was a lie, why would they die for it? Answer me that.
So, I mean, for me, it would be that I just don't know enough about the events surrounding their death. Like, for example, did they die? You know, being told recant or die, and then they're going, no, this is how it happened or whatever.
Okay.
Or do we just know that they might have died, and it's kind of sketchy for a few of them whether it was persecution or what? That would be one of the first stumbling blocks to that, is that we don't know exactly how they went out or exactly what opportunities they had to go back on their beliefs. Or
so you're saying we don't even know if they had the chance to recant, and maybe they did and died anyhow.
Yeah, I mean that's entirely possible. And I mean even if it were the case that they did die, kind of professing what modern Christians today would say the gospel message is, then that still isn't necessarily an indication that it was accurate. They could have just made, or they could have been deluded or something like that. It's still not 100% kind of verifiable. So
okay, I'm down to my last quiver, my last arrow. You've rejected, you've dismissed eyewitness testimony. Of course, I disagree with you. I'm playing the part of a Christian. You've dismissed eyewitness testimony. You've dismissed prophecy. You're open to miracles, but you basically dismissed it as evidence for Christianity. You've dismissed martyrdom. The last arrow I have to fire at you is, what if you're wrong?
Right.
There could be a hell out there awaiting you.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most difficult part of it, because there's sure a lot of like anxiety tied into that as well. Now I think that it's very difficult to reconcile the hell of a God who would condemn someone who's actually, I mean, maybe you know, the kind of precept Calvinist types who'd want to say it's just that I love my sin or whatever. But I think if there's a God that would send me to hell for just believing different propositions, for not having the correct, but even if the God knew I was lying to myself and I was like repressing certain information, certain thoughts in order to have those beliefs, and that those were the conditions for me not to go to hell, that I couldn't square that away with like omnibenevolence or the general kind of attributes of divine aseity of the Christian God, for sure. So I don't know. I think that's maybe where I'm at with that one. But yeah, it's certainly something that's scary.
So I'm hearing you say that even if there is a hell, you're not so sure you would want to worship or be with a God that would do such a thing.
Well, I'm saying it seems like a contradiction for there to be a hell and this God of, divine love and mercy and forgiveness, and goodness. That seems to actually contradict like someone who's just trying to figure these things out and has questions and not solid answers.
But don't you want to live forever? So let's say hell's not really a bad place, and then you just poof out of existence when you die, if you're not a Christian. But if you are a Christian, you get to spend eternity with God in heaven. Don't you want that?
I mean, I think that's an interesting moral question, because of the way I am, you know, often like when life can be overwhelming, I'd be like, that's where I psychologically would go to. I'd be like, oh, I want to just not exist. But I do think that in actually sometimes in bearing the suffering of life and kind of pursuing forward. So I don't know if I could say whether I'd want to be alive forever, or if I'd want to, you know, in some kind of different state, or if I'd want to poof not exist. I don't know. That's not the type of decision I could make.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I tried within the time constraints that I had. Christians, apologists, and pastors listening, either now in the replay, I tried my best. I fired all my quivers, all my arrows at him, at Nathan, and it didn't work. So now I'm going to...
They're very triggered.
Now I'm going to go back to me being an atheist, and we're going to talk about God, not Christianity, but theism in general. Because when I asked you earlier, do you believe that there's a God? I think you said you leaned yes, right?
Yeah, I think I lean yes, or that there's some kind of divine mind or something like that. Yeah, I don't know quite.
Tell me what you think is the main reason why you believe that you lean yes, that there is a God.
I think, I don't know that there's a main one, but it would be some of your kind of traditional theistic philosophical arguments, I think. Generally, for example, the intelligibility of the universe, the seemingly fundamental nature of consciousness. And I know like maybe you're thinking that this is that kind of like, oh, consciousness seems like something spooky, therefore God type thing. And I don't mean it like that. I mean like it seems to be the case that for laws of nature to be set in the way that they are, that they'd be nested in something immaterial to exist before. And this isn't my opinion. This is Alexander Vilenkin in what paper was it? Something like Genesis of a Pythagorean Universe. So he talks about, you know, for laws of nature to be set, it seems like there must be something more fundamental, like mind, or idealism has some pretty convincing philosophical arguments.
So I'm hearing a few things here.
Yeah, sure.
Just that I'm hearing consciousness. Well, let's pick that one first.
Yeah, sure.
Let's say we had the technology in 10, 20 years that we could kill people and bring them back to life 100% of the time. And
right.
So, and we can run repeatable tests over and over again. And it seems like there is no immaterial consciousness. If it were true, if it were true that consciousness, everybody, 99% of people agree that it's 99% true that consciousness is purely material. Would you still believe in God? Would you still lean, yes, I believe in God?
So I wouldn't be shifted by I mean, I'd kind of be shifted by the majority of people, but I'd want to look at the evidence, and if the evidence was strong enough, yeah,
And I'm
be
saying
like,
that's an experiment. This experiment, we
Yeah.
we ran random number generators. We kill people and say, hey, go to the top of the room after you're dead, see what the numbers is, come back down. The same story that's what's his name? Is it Gary Habermas? Yeah, Gary Habermas always shows us as a great example of consciousness being immaterial. If we could run that test over and over again, and we can't get anybody to figure out what those numbers are, would your confidence that a God exists be lowered?
Not by that. It would more be like if we could kind of explain the causal link between, say, between the seeming, like the ghost in the machine type thing, that if we could get the causal link between that and the material, if it could be reduced in a way that fully explained it, then I'd go with that. But there doesn't seem to be enough.
But would you lean no, that God doesn't exist if we could explain that link?
I guess then that would be, I think that would shift it, yeah, for sure, because that would be evidence that minds require the constituent matter to exist, that they're not something that can exist independently of the matter. So yeah.
But would it shift enough for you? Do you think it would shift enough for you would say, I lean no, that no God exists?
Not no completely, but it would certainly be like, it would be something that made the universe seem a bit more like this random, maybe unguided thing, because it would seem like maybe there's not a mind that could be, but it could still be like a panentheistic mind or something like that, or it would depend what the data showed about how consciousness comes about.
Okay, let's move on to that tells me from what you said that consciousness is not really the powerful reason why you lean yes to God. It's probably a big part, but probably. So let's.
No, but sorry, you go.
Let's explore the whole. You mentioned orderedness and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
If it were true that there was some type of fundamental property of the universe that's completely natural, that let's say the multiverse theory is true, and out of 1 trillion universes, you'll find one that looks like ours and has this fundamental necessary property that allows for people like us to exist. Would that lower your confidence? Would you start leaning no?
So some of the research into like philosophy of like nature, for natural laws and the multiverse, seems to be saying stuff like, well, in order for there to be these natural laws across multiple universes, you kind of just move it a step back for like any kind of cosmological argument or contingency argument. They still sort of work, but it's just a step back. So you've got this thing that's spitting out universes instead with particular natural laws. Would it reduce my confidence? I think it'd just make me more agnostic. Like it'd just make me more like, this is a bit more beyond what I can understand or comprehend.
Where do you think you're at now? Like 0 is, I believe no God exists, no gods at all. 100 is, I believe there's at least one God out there. Where do you think you are between 0 and 100?
I think every day I live like, it's the case, and I can't help that. That's what I mean by I've got a belief without, like, I can't escape that kind of like moral landscape that I live in, and that seems to have cosmic significance and things like that.
But I can tell you're not at 100, right? Or am I wrong?
Oh yeah, I'm not at 100.
So you're somewhere between 50 and 100. It sounds like.
Yeah, but like I say, I don't know that it's something that's even attached like rationally anymore. It's just something that's there, and I don't know what to do about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's. Do you think if you would have been raised in an atheist home, I wasn't, but
I was.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
So did you start believing in God first or Christianity first?
God first.
I should put it.
Yeah.
Did you start believing in God and Christianity at the same time?
Well, sorry, I took psychedelics first.
Oh, okay. Did psychedelics actually Was that the first impetus of you believing in a deity?
That was the first thing that made me think that kind of like materialist reductionism had got it wrong for sure. Yeah.
That's interesting, because wouldn't that do the opposite? For like, if you're taking a chemical, a material chemical, wouldn't that make you think, and you're having this experience of the immaterial, wouldn't you say to yourself, well, how can a chemical cause this?
Oh no, I did. I really studied the kind of pharmacology behind it and what parts of the brain were being deactivated, and what, I was trying to like figure out, well, what is this consciousness thing? But the interesting thing about the experience, and it could be explained entirely in materialist terms, but it would be the fact that how kind of like narrative driven it was. It was almost like learning a load of weird lessons about philosophy of language and how like I came to be a human, and how all these weird narratives of people's lives in the past like twined together to bring me to where I am now. And there was like a moral element to it, so people making mistakes and seeing how that led to me being who I was. It was very, very weird and beyond something I could explain, but I'm certain, it could just be that like I've got all this information, the connectivity increased between the left and right hemispheres of my brain, my default mode network down regulated, so I didn't have the sense of self that I'd normally have, and then all these there is a naturalistic explanation, but my experience as a person is phenomenological fundamentally. Like it's I just have the experience I have. It's kind of like, if you're in pain and I say, oh, your C fibers are firing or something like that, like the pain is the pain. It's not just C fibers firing. It's got like a different quality to it fundamentally.
But you're not, like, for me, I'm willing to say I don't know on these questions.
Sure.
I think earlier on you said that, I think you admitted that you don't have justification or.
Yeah, I'm saying I don't know, but I kind of have a, I have this weird sort of belief that it's to do with the God that exists, and like religions are to do with that, maybe or maybe not, but I'm saying I don't know. Like I wouldn't claim like propositional knowledge in the same sense that.
But you're still leaning yes, but you can't defend it, is what I'm hearing you say.
I'm saying I'm saying I've got a belief, and I don't have the conditions for knowledge. Like it's not like a warranted true belief necessarily. Right. It could be true or false. It's just a belief.
Yeah. Okay. It's sort of like just a hunch.
Yeah, maybe it's that. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting though, because it seems like quite an important question, and there's lots of stuff around it. But I get. Yeah, I'd say it's maybe like a form of agnosticism. Like a lot of Christians wouldn't want to deal with that kind of thing, or say that that's anything like Christianity. Or
you mentioned depression earlier. Do you fear that if this hunch was to go away, that things would get worse for you?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know that it necessarily made it better being like a Christian and involved in. I think it just meant that, like, because I thought maybe this thing will be the solution, it just made me like pick up different behavior patterns, but I was still fundamentally just as the same, like mental states and things.
Yeah, like for me, even if I had this hunch, I would still be like, if we can't figure out, if you have a hunch on the ontology, if you can't figure out the nature of this deity, what he wants for you, if he even wants anything, I guess what does it matter?
Oh, well, this is the one. I think this is what makes it very difficult for it to be, say, the Christian God. Then is because Christianity seems to be saying, well, we have this personal being who wants to make things clear in a specific way. But my view is very much that it's more convoluted than that, and not like that. And maybe personal, but it seems more impersonal than like a Jesus saying, here's exactly what you do and think. I don't know.
But the God that you have a hunch for, or the supernatural realm that you have a hunch for now, do you have the position that it is a personal God, or it does want interacts with you?
I don't know. Would be, like I'd say, I think, like for example, things like morality or beauty seem to make more sense in the context of some form of personal, omnipotent creator being. But they can also make sense. Well, they can't make full sense, and that maybe this is where it does become like a God of the Gaps argument, because it's like there's so much more to the experience than the reductionist can kind of account for, and so they've got a burden of proof to show just a bit more evidence maybe before I'd be able to accept that position fully, or maybe that's it. I don't know.
I'm hearing you say that maybe the default position should be a supernatural realm or a God, just because we lack explanation.
Well, isn't that the kind of like atheist narrative anyway? Is that's what Christianity was or not just religion is a way to make sense of our experience of the world, and then now we have science, and we don't necessarily need we don't need gods that are kind of anthropomorphizations.
But you've rejected Christianity, and I tried to bring you back, and you shot me down. You've rejected Christianity, and you just said that Christianity was maybe used as a way to explain things. How do you know you're just not doing the same thing, but removing the Christian label? And
I don't know. Okay. And I also don't know. I don't know that Christianity is exclusively just that. Like I say, I think there's something about narrative. There's something about the narrative of the Gospels. There's something about the transcendent and intimations of beauty and things like that. And Christianity might have something to do with that. I just don't know, is where I'm at the minute.
You sound a little bit like Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I think maybe that's where it's coming from.
Well, my wife just got home, and
sure.
And supper smells really good. And I know it's probably 1 a.m. there now.
It's like 20 minutes to here.
So I appreciate the talk. Yeah,
no problem. I'm sorry if it was more boring, because I wasn't kind of like trying to defend inerrancy or something, which could have been.
No. It was actually exciting, because I loved trying to bring you back to Christianity there for half an hour or whatever it was. And I
know you're going to use that to annoy some apologists as well or something. So
they'll see it. I don't have to clip it, but
okay.
And I do understand where you're coming from, because I used to be a Christian, and that hunch that maybe there's, you see the beauty in the order. For me, it's child prodigies, that you mentioned beauty, and, okay. And you kind of step back and say, And, but, at this point in my life, I say, if there is this ontology out there, whatever it is, if it's personal, wants me to know about him, he, I think, would give me evidence to believe it. And until then, I'll say I don't know. I do think, however, it's more reasonable to say that we've had so many naturalistic explanations for phenomena in the past that we can use induction to say
there are only white swans.
Yeah. That there's no need to have a hunch on a black swan.
I'm just not prepared to make that to say that. I think especially with things that seem so important, because I can't. Especially when I think about practical implications. So say the stock atheist line of determinism and moral anti-realism, it seems to have some really, if society accepted that and we legislated that way, and that's how we ran government and that's how people lived, that this isn't an argument for the truth of Christianity or my position, but I'm saying that would be a right mess. What we can't hold people accountable. If someone came in and threw your dog out the window, and they said, I couldn't help it because some events happened in my childhood that just causally determined me to do this, whatever. Yeah. And then,
I hear what you're saying, but that I would take the Calvinist answer to that is, the hyper-Calvinists believe that everything's been decreed, everything's known. They probably won't use the word fatalist, but they would say, well, we don't know the mind of God, though, so we act as if we're free, and we don't know what actions that we will do will cause an effect in someone else. So we just live. We'll have goals. We'll have standards of morality and that sort of thing, ethics, and so some of it will be trial and error, and we'll learn from our mistakes. And it's so convoluted and so complex, the cause and effect amongst humans, that we just do our best. And I think you can still have things like moral accountability and shaming and rewarding, even if we are completely deterministic, because we don't know what causes what. And exactly.
But it's kind of ultimately it's the meaninglessness and absurdity then, like as a rational being who holds to there fundamentally being nothing behind it or no ultimate rhyme or reason. It then is pretty absurd to act in, say, like a noble, like when you've got this inclination of conscience that's like, well, it's noble for me to act this way, but it benefits me more hedonistically to act this way. Like what do you do with that? If you believe that there's possibly some divine or some meaning behind it, then you can take that noble route. You can do. Whereas,
I think I think selfishness can go a long way to being noble. I know that sounds almost like an oxymoron, but I feel the best in life when I'm helping people.
Okay, sure, but that isn't always the case. Like there's a lot of people for whom acting selfishly really is at the expense of others. A lot of people who don't seem to have that.
That's because I haven't caused that effect in them yet. like even if no one's looking, and I'm walking down the street and I see garbage on the street and I pick it up and no one saw it.
Yeah.
Why did I do it? Because it made me feel better that I'm helping the environment or helping the beauty of the neighborhood or whatever. It's a very selfish reason. It makes me feel good. But you don't need, I think, a deity in my opinion, you don't need a deity to have this idea of being noble and doing the right thing.
I'm not 100% sure, because like maybe it's just me constructing like, say, weird edge cases or something. Sorry, I know you're thinking about your tea. Like weird edge cases, like so that war kind of scenarios and examples of self-sacrifice, people with say like older parents and they don't want to look after and they go and do it anyway kind of thing, or even on like against the utilitarianism examples, that there's those weird cases of like families of 5 where they lock up one of the kids and the 4 of them get way more pleasure from like torturing this one kid, but it's clearly morally wrong, like just on the surface of it. And I think in some of those situations we can say there's like a noble narrative of suffering and dying to self, and that seems to be ultimately instantiated in like the story of Christ and how that's changed the West, and how but
you'll see this in the animal kingdom of higher primates. And and so I think evolution can explain that.
I'm just not sure it can yet. Maybe it will be able to in future.
Like, for example, imagine you're at a cafe, an outdoor cafe, and you're sitting having tea, and a woman with a baby is in the table next to you in a high chair, and the baby falls out of the high chair, and you see this happen. There's no time to cognitively think what's the right thing to do in this situation. Before your brain even thinks, you will, and I think this is the case for most humans, you will instinctively put your hand out to catch that baby. And I think evolution explains that act of nobility. It's instinctive in us.
But then there are issues, and maybe this just gets into like what I say is, say if we take like the the non-cognitivist approach to morality then. So we're saying it's not actually a belief that something's good or bad, but it's a description of my own mental state. So then how can we actually how can we make laws like based off of morality? Because then we're saying that logic isn't topic neutral when it applies to morality, because we're using these like conditionals to describe a set of beliefs. Like if it is the case that D is wrong, then it's wrong for the government to order this. But we're saying, but then when we say, you know, D is wrong, we're then just expressing our mental state. And so we're saying that logic then shifts in this way that it doesn't do for any other topic in the world. And that poses like a big problem for, I don't know, like I'm opening up a whole can of worms here, but there's so much like, you know, there's so much to be explained from that point of view.
But you've seen how laws have evolved, right, over history.
Yes, yeah.
It's and you can even say it's trial and error. Like humans have goals and they try legislating certain things and they find out, oh, that doesn't work, so they try different laws, and sometimes they forget to take the old laws off the books. But I would say that if you look back, see, the Christian would say that, oh, isn't it great how God grades morality on a cultural curve and just slowly phased out slavery over time. But I would say that how just looking at history and how laws have evolved shows that humans have evolved, and not just, you know, in height and weight and so forth, but in the choices that we've made to for certain laws. But I really got to go.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but yeah, thanks for the conversation anyway, man.